So one of our viewers said, how can a sales pipeline be built and managed effectively?
Sure. Well, it really depends on what stage you're at. Obviously, if you're in the earliest stages, like you just had an idea for your startup and you're trying to figure out where do I build a pipeline and how can I generate demand, my first question would be, how did you come up with the problem? Was there a person? Was there a situation? Were you at an event? What triggered the actual idea for it? And who were you around? Because regardless if you were talking to the exact person you're solving the problem for, or just someone that's more aware of it, that's a good place to start, because often a lot of your first customers, that first pipeline, those are the early adopters. Those are the people that have the most pain. They're the most accessible. They're typically involved in organizations in different communities, whether it's online, offline, meaning like more in person, but they're available and they're searching for these types of solutions. So for me, the very first thing that I do is try and capitalize on my known network. Because of course you can always go out and spend money and run ads and do all these things, but ultimately if you can do stuff for free and also you can start to manage that network and develop those relationships in that pipeline early, you're just going to find yourself in a better position overall.
Okay. We have, when and how should a go-to-market effort be scaled?
Sure. So for go-to-market, it really depends on, again, like all great answers, it depends, because you should be scaling things that are known and that are proven, meaning you know this channel is going to work and you can prove that if you're going to put in $1, $10, $100, you're going to start getting ROI. Now, it doesn't always track perfectly. There's learning curves. There's times where you're going to be spending ad dollars because the actual engine is learning how to run your ad efficiently. So it could be that you're spending money and you're not actually making that much revenue in the beginning, or your system is learning. But when I think of scaling, before I even kind of start ramping that up really aggressively, I always ask, are there tasks, jobs, items, things that should be scaled, things that pass that test of they are working, we are confident in them, we are seeing results that we want to achieve, and we have a clear way forward. Far too often, I think founders jump from level one of I'm doing everything incredibly manually and I'm going to do, you're living in a Google sheet, right? Taking notes on everything. And they want to jump from that all the way to automation just immediately. And that's expensive, that's time consuming. There's a lot of questions that you may not know the answers to that you have to answer in order to build that tech or invest that time. But way before automation, way before building all these crazy tech solutions, there's developing efficient processes. There's standardizing specific jobs. There's documenting your process so you can train employees and other people so that at a minimum, maybe you don't have to do the slightly inefficient go-to-market task for acquiring customers. Maybe an intern can do part of it. Maybe an outsourced virtual assistant, or maybe someone else on the team can help build the funnel to allow you to scale those efforts, not from going from zero to, hero with automation, but much more, how can I take what I'm doing and get 10% more, 20% more? Because if you do that with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 channels, all of a sudden you have more customers that you can manage. You have all types of implementation and onboarding things to be excited about. And then of course you can take that revenue from that first win and invest it into all the next and use that as an engine to keep it moving forward and increase that speed.
So I took the phone from Miguel real quick. This is not a question from the audience. I just kind of want to piggyback off of that. So in that case, how do you prioritize? Because, go-to-market can be so many things at once. And as a founder, they might feel kind of just lost. If their goal is to scale, how would they prioritize?
Sure. So when they're prioritizing, first I would look at what are their organic, meaning their more free strategies, and what are their paid strategies. So one is, what are they already doing? Because if they only are doing organic things, then it's really just a question of how can we do those more efficiently, more effectively? Is it, again, like standardizing processes, or is it outsourcing some tech? On the other side, it could be that, hey, this is a company that's really heavily dependent on spending money on ads, on Google paid per click, on content creation that they're spending money on for some reason. It's like that could also be a big expenditure. But the founder themselves also has a circumstance. Some founders have access to a lot of capital, but they're not that confident in their product. So it's effectively like they have no money. Some founders have tons of confidence in their product and absolutely no access to easy capital. Therefore, there's someone that I go, okay, well, you're probably gonna have to lean organic, lean more free, and do more of those activities because that is what you can literally afford to do. You can use that to get validation, get momentum, get the right customers, or at least the right dialogues going to facilitate more revenue, more interest, more validation. And maybe that founder that has all the confidence, now they have all the proof, and then they go raise the money. Or likewise, maybe the founder that doesn't have all the confidence but has all the money, they can go do validation work to get confident and then go access that money to invest in their business, to invest in their scale, and to enable that next step. But ultimately it comes down to, from my perspective, way more of a what can we do with the resources that we have, and how far are we away from unlocking more resources, whether it's resources that we can access like capital, team, knowledge, whatever, or the other side of resources, how can we bootstrap, use the capital that we have and the business has to reinvest? How can we turn those, sales marketing activities into ROI positive activities, which generate more money, $1 in and $3 out, and then take 2 of those dollars and put it right back in.
Awesome. And then, so if they get to the point where they're paying for marketing, right? They've reached organic and they want to pay. How would they actually measure if it's worth, or like measure that marketing aspect once they start paying for these ads, or should they look at click rates? Should they look at customers who are actually converting? Like,
sure.
What's the go-to?
So KPIs vary heavily depending on your business, your channel, whether you're B2B, B2C. So in this example, let's just talk about a B2C, call it an e-commerce brand, right? Where your goal is to market, to do paid ads, to create organic content, to get people that interested in what you're doing and what you're saying and what you're offering. Well, those types of companies are obviously gonna want to really understand marketing. So from like a broad perspective of go-to-market, I think about 3 core buckets. Sales, so that one-to-one type communication and conversion, where most companies start. Marketing, where you're actually pumping out information, ads, organic content to build awareness, build brand, do these types of things. And then business development. And business development is partnerships and negotiations, and someone already has your customer, so let's see if we can do a little deal, offer them access to us, what can we do for you, potentially partnerships, tit for tat. Again, you can play it how you want, really depends on the industry and what you're shopping for. But notice each of those has different activities. Each of those has different metrics, whether I'm talking sales and how many outbound calls you're making, whether I'm talking marketing and how many unique website visits we're actually having per day, per week, insert period here. Or if I'm talking business development, how many outbounds, how many partnerships have we formed? Remember, it's not always about volume, sometimes it's just quality. Meaning, what if we have 10 partnerships, but 3 of them are the only ones returning anything? Clearly there are a limited, and there's infinite amounts of KPIs that you can delve into and be kind of infinitely distracted, but that's not the point. The point is to find those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that really are materially telling of what your business is going to be. My favorite example is the KPI North Star, which is if you think of Uber. So let's use Uber as the example because it's a marketplace, which means Uber has a certain amount of drivers that are willing to offer rides and has a certain number of people that are interested in rides. Well, Uber could have 100 different KPIs of how many cars and what type and in what city and this, and I'm sure they do. I'm sure they track every single data point they possibly can. But on the other side, Uber also wants to make money, and they understand that in order to make money, there's one thing that matters, and that is connecting riders to drivers. So if I had to pick one metric, that North Star to bet the entire company on, I would bet on, in this case, amount of rides connected, amount of successful rides completed, because that means driver matched with rider, and there was a success. Now notice there's 100 other KPIs and metrics and benchmarks that go into that, but ultimately it's that one metric that is the most telling. So if I'm you, very short story long, I would try and figure out what are the full KPIs that I have available, and then which are the ones that are ultimately going to be the most telling, that give me the most business intelligence to know if I'm actually heading in the right direction.
Awesome. Those are all we have right now, but
that's great. We'll tackle more questions in the future.